I never expected my mother's will reading to feel like a performance, but my stepsister Victoria made sure it was exactly that. The way she perched on the leather chair in Attorney Davidson's office, perfectly positioned so the morning light caught her diamond earrings, mother's diamond earrings, which had mysteriously disappeared from the hospital room the night she died. "Shall we begin?" Davidson asked, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. His office felt too small for the tension filling it, despite the impressive oak desk and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The leather-bound law books seemed to watch us, silent witnesses to what was about to unfold. I'm Catherine Pierce, though everyone calls me Kate. At 32, I'd spent the last 5 years caring for my mother through her illness, watching her decline while Victoria jetted around Europe finding herself, or at least finding wealthy men to fund her adventures. Now, sitting across from my stepsister's perfectly practiced smile, I felt every sleepless night, every missed opportunity, every sacrifice I'd made. Of course, Victoria purred, crossing her legs. Poor mother would want us to handle this quickly. She shot me a look that made my skin crawl. Some of us have important meetings to attend. Davidson cleared his throat and began reading. I, Elizabeth Mary Stanford Pierce, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I tried to focus on his words, but my mind kept drifting to the weight of mother's diary in my bag. The small, leather-bound book I'd found 3 days ago, hidden behind the loose brick in the garden wall, our special place where we used to hide treasures when I was little. And to my beloved daughter, Victoria Rose Hamilton Pierce, I leave my entire estate, including the family home at 1242 Maple Grove Road, all financial accounts and investments, and all personal property contained therein, estimated at a total value of $5 million. The room went silent. I felt the blood drain from my face as Victoria's smile widened. Furthermore, Davidson continued, to my daughter Catherine Anna Pierce, I leave. Nothing, Victoria interrupted, unable to contain herself. Finally, the favorite wins. She actually clapped her hands together, like a child who'd gotten everything she wanted for Christmas. Davidson frowned at the interruption, but continued. I leave my sincere apologies and hopes for understanding. I sat there, numb, as Victoria practically bounced in her chair. 5 years of care, of watching mother slowly slip away, of managing her medications and appointments and endless paperwork, all of it handed over to the stepsister who couldn't even be bothered to visit more than twice a year. Well, Victoria stood, smoothing her designer dress. I believe that concludes our business. I'll have my people contact you about transferring everything to my name, Mr. Davidson. She turned to me, her smile sharp as a knife. You'll need to be out of the house by Friday, of course. I'm having it renovated. That's when I reached for my bag. Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, there's something else that needs to be addressed. I pulled out mother's diary, its worn leather cover familiar as my own heartbeat. Mr. Davidson, I believe you should see this. Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. What's that supposed to be? Mother's diary, I said, opening it to the page I'd marked. From 6 months ago. I handed it to Davidson, who took it with professional curiosity. This is irrelevant, Victoria snapped. The will is clear. Davidson adjusted his glasses and began to read. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. He flipped back a page, then forward, his frown deepening with each word. Ms. Pierce, he said finally, looking at Victoria, I believe we may have a serious problem. Victoria's smile faltered for the first time. What do you mean? This diary, Davidson said, contains detailed accounts of what appears to be coercion and undue influence. According to these entries, Mrs. Stanford Pierce was pressured to change her will under threat of. He paused, reading more carefully. Under threat of revealing certain information about her late husband's business dealings to the SEC. Victoria's face went from porcelain perfect to ghostly white in seconds. That's ridiculous. She was confused near the end, imagining things. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording. Mother's voice, weak but clear, filled the office. Victoria threatened to destroy Edward's reputation if I didn't change the will. She found something in his old files. I can't let her ruin his legacy, but what she's asking, Catherine deserves better. That's illegal, Victoria shrieked, lunging for my phone. You can't record someone without their consent. Actually, Davidson interjected, In this state, only one party needs to be aware of the recording. And given these revelations, I believe we need to pause any transfer of assets pending a full investigation. Victoria's composure cracked completely. You can't do this. I have rights. That money is mine. What you have, I said quietly, is evidence of blackmail and coercion of a terminally ill woman. Would you like to explain that to a judge? She turned on me, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing the devoted daughter, secretly gathering evidence. Does your recording include the part where Mother begged me not to tell anyone about Daddy's creative accounting, about the missing investor funds? Davidson's eyebrows shot up, and I fought back a smile. Victoria had never been good at thinking before she spoke when she was angry. No, I replied calmly, but I'm sure the SEC would be very interested in what you just said. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked from me to Davidson, then back again, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her designer outfit. This isn't over, she hissed, snatching up her purse. You have no idea what you're getting into. As she stormed out, her heels echoing down the hallway, Davidson turned to me with newfound respect. Miss Pierce, I believe we need to discuss filing some motions to contest this will, and perhaps contacting the authorities. I nodded, feeling the weight of the past 5 years, of all the nights spent watching Victoria manipulate and scheme while I cared for our dying mother. Yes, I believe we do. But first, there's something else you need to see. I reached into my bag again, pulling out a second diary, older and more worn than the first. This one is from 2 years ago, and what it reveals about Victoria's involvement in Father's death, well, that's an entirely different story. Davidson's eyes widened as he took the second diary. As he began to read, I settled back in my chair, thinking about Mother's words from her final days. The truth always finds its way to the light, Catherine. Always. She was right, and this was just the beginning. The second diary felt heavier than its worn leather binding would suggest. As Attorney Davidson read through its pages, his expression grew increasingly grave. Each turn of the page seemed to age him slightly, the weight of its revelations visible in the deepening lines around his eyes. Miss Pierce, he said finally, closing the diary with careful precision. These allegations about your father's death, they're extremely serious. I nodded, remembering the night 2 years ago when I first suspected something wasn't right. That's why I waited to bring this forward. I needed to be certain. The diary entry from July 15, 2023 was particularly damning. Mother had written, Victoria was in Edward's study again tonight, going through his files. When I confronted her, she just smiled and said, You should be more worried about what's in his medicine cabinet than what's in his desk. 2 days later, he was dead. Davidson pulled out a legal pad and began taking notes. Your father's death was ruled natural causes, heart failure. Yes, I said, leaning forward. But Mother noticed something strange about his medications the day he died. She wrote about it here. I flipped to a marked page. His pills had been replaced. The colors were slightly off. Before Davidson could respond, his office door burst open. Victoria stood there, her perfect composure now completely shattered, mascara smeared beneath wild eyes. You little snake, she shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at me. I just got off the phone with Marcus. You've been busy, haven't you? Digging through old records, asking questions about Daddy's investments? I stayed seated, maintaining the calm I knew would infuriate her most. Marcus, your broker friend who helped hide Father's money? How interesting that you're still in touch. Victoria's face contorted. You have no idea what you're dealing with. This isn't just about some inheritance. There are people involved, whoa. Who what, Victoria? I interrupted. Who might not want the SEC investigating those offshore accounts. Or perhaps who wouldn't want questions asked about certain medication changes. She took a step back, her designer heel catching on the doorframe. You're insane. Nobody will believe your conspiracy theories. Actually, Davidson interjected, holding up Mother's diary. These are quite detailed accounts, including dates, names, account numbers. He paused meaningfully, and descriptions of meetings between you and certain individuals in the weeks before Mr. Pierce's death. Victoria's composure cracked further. Those are lies. She was sick, confused. Mother was many things near the end, I said quietly, but confused wasn't one of them. She documented everything, Victoria. Every threat you made, every document you forced her to sign, every accidental medication mix-up. You can't prove anything, Victoria hissed, but her voice wavered. Can't I? I pulled out my phone again. Remember Nancy, father's nurse? The one you paid to take a vacation right before he died? She's been very cooperative lately. Victoria's face went from red to white in seconds. You spoke to Nancy. She had quite a story to tell about the night father died. About how you insisted on being the one to give him his medication. About the pills she found in the trash afterward. Davidson was scribbling furiously now, his legal pad filling with notes. Miss Pierce, Victoria, I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel immediately. Victoria's laugh had an edge of hysteria. Legal counsel? You think this is about lawyers? She turned to me, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You have no idea what you're starting. If these allegations get out, there are people who will lose everything. People who won't hesitate to. To what? I stood finally, meeting her gaze. To silence me? Like father was silenced when he discovered the truth about his company's finances. The color drained from Victoria's face. What are you talking about? I turned to Davidson. In the final pages of that diary, Mother writes about a conversation she overheard. Father had discovered irregularities in the company books. Millions missing, funneled through shell corporations. He was planning to go to the authorities. Stop, Victoria whispered. 2 days later, his heart medication was switched. Mother saw you in his study that night, replacing the pills in his organizer. She wrote it all down, Victoria. Every detail. Victoria's designer purse slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a thud. Lipsticks and smartphones scattered across the hardwood. You don't understand, she said, her voice small now. They made me do it. Marcus, the board members, they said they'd destroy me if I didn't help them. They needed someone close to him, someone who could murder him? I finished quietly. The word hung in the air like smoke, heavy and toxic. Davidson had stopped writing, his pen frozen mid-word. Victoria's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We just needed him to sign some papers, to approve some transfers. The pills were just supposed to make him confused, compliant. But something went wrong. Miss Pierce, Davidson said sharply, I advise you to say nothing further without legal representation. But Victoria wasn't listening. The careful mask she'd worn for years had cracked completely, revealing the frightened woman beneath. They'll kill me if this gets out. Marcus, the others, they'll never let these secrets come to light. I pulled out one final item from my bag, a USB drive. That's why I've made copies of everything. Mother's diaries, father's records, the offshore account details, Nancy's statement. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. Victoria sank into a chair, her designer outfit wrinkled, and asked you, what do you want? Justice, I said simply. For father. For mother. For everything you've stolen. I can't. She started, then stopped, looking lost. The money's gone. Most of it. Marcus and the others took it. I don't care about the money, I replied. I want the truth. All of it. Every name. Every account. Every detail about father's death. Victoria looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. They'll come after you too, once they know you know. Let them try. I turned to Davidson. I believe we need to contact the authorities, and perhaps set up some witness protection discussions for my sister. Victoria's head snapped up at the word sister, the first time I ever acknowledged our relationship that way. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the girl she might have been before greed and fear had twisted her into something else. Why, she whispered. Why would you help me after everything? I thought about Mother's final diary entry, written just days before her death. My greatest regret is not seeing what fear and desperation had done to Victoria. Perhaps if I'd reached out sooner, shown her another way. Because Mother would have wanted me to, I said finally. And because the people who forced you to kill Father are the real enemies here. Davidson cleared his throat. I'll make some calls. But first, Ms. Pierce, Victoria, we need your full statement. Everything you know about your father's death and the company's finances. Victoria nodded slowly, then reached for her fallen purse. She pulled out a small notebook, its pages stuffed with additional papers. It's all here, she said quietly. Every meeting, every transaction, every name. I've been keeping records too, just in case. As Davidson called his contacts in the DA's office, I watched my stepsister begin to write her statement, her hands shaking but determined. The truth was finally coming to light, but I knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, Marcus and his associates were still enjoying their stolen millions, unaware that their carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse. Mother's final wish hadn't been about money or property. It had been about justice, about bringing the truth into the light. And now, finally, we were going to make that wish come true. The safe house wasn't much to look at. A modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet suburb, but it was secure. Victoria sat at the kitchen table, her designer clothes replaced by department store basics, her perfectly styled hair now hidden under a plain brown wig. The transformation was striking. Marcus called again, she said, pushing her untouched coffee away. 3 times last night. He knows something's wrong. Detective Sarah Martinez nodded, making notes on her tablet. We've been working with her for the past week, building the case piece by piece. Let him worry, she said. The more nervous he gets, the more likely he is to make a mistake. I watched my stepsister carefully. Despite everything, there was something almost admirable about how she'd stepped up once she decided to cooperate. Her detailed records of the company's illegal activities had already led to 2 arrests of lower-level executives. There's something else, Victoria said, pulling out her phone. This came this morning. She showed us a text message. Your father knew when to keep quiet. Shame you didn't inherit his wisdom. Still time to fix this. Martinez's expression hardened. A threat and a confession all in one. They're getting sloppy. My phone buzzed. A message from Davidson. SEC team wants to meet. They found something big in the offshore accounts. Before I could respond, Victoria's phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Martinez said, activating recording equipment. Keep him talking. Victoria's hands shook as she hit the speaker button. Hello. Where the hell have you been? Marcus's voice filled the room, sharp with anger and fear. I've been trying to reach you for days. I'm sorry I've been dealing with family matters. Victoria's voice was surprisingly steady. Family matters. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like your sister suddenly asking questions about Edward's old accounts. Like Nancy the nurse suddenly hiring a lawyer. I felt a chill. They'd found Nancy. I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria said, but Marcus cut her off. Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you. His voice dropped lower, menacing. Remember who you really are, Victoria. Remember what you did to get where you are. Do you think Catherine would still want to help you if she knew everything? Victoria's eyes met mine across the table. What do you mean? Tell her about Paris, Marcus said. Tell her why you really went there 3 years ago. Tell her about the meeting with Edward's old partner. I saw Victoria's face go pale. There was something she hadn't told us. That's enough, Marcus, she said firmly. I'm done playing your games. Games? He laughed again. Oh, sweetheart, this is no game. Check your email. I just sent you something interesting, security footage from a certain hotel in Paris. I wonder what the police would make of that. Victoria's hand was shaking so badly she nearly dropped her phone. You wouldn't dare. Try me. You have 24 hours to get your sister to back off, or everything comes out. And I mean everything. The line went dead. Martinez was already moving. We need to get that email traced and find out what happened in Paris. Victoria sat very still, staring at her coffee. I can't tell you about Paris. Please don't ask me to. I leaned forward. Victoria, whatever it is. No, she cut me off. You don't understand. What happened in Paris? It's worse than what we did to father. If it gets out. A tear rolled down her cheek. Sometimes there are secrets that should stay buried. Martinez's phone buzzed. Her expression turned grim as she read the message. They found Nancy. She's in the hospital. Apparent suicide attempt, but the responding officer thinks it was staged. The room went silent. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice barely a whisper. It's happening again. Just like with Parker. Who's Parker? I asked. Edward's old accountant, Martinez said, checking her files. Found dead in his garage 6 years ago. Carbon monoxide poisoning. It wasn't suicide, Victoria said. Parker found the first discrepancies in the books. He was going to, but then, she shuddered. Marcus took care of it. I felt sick. How deep did this go? There's only one way to end this, I said finally. We need to go public. All of it, everything we have. No more secrets they can use against us. You don't understand, Victoria pleaded. Paris. I don't care about Paris. I cut her off. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. But we can't let them keep hurting people. Martinez nodded. I agree. We take it all public. The evidence, the threats, everything. Make it too big for them to cover up. Victoria stared at her hands for a long moment. Finally, she looked up, something like her old determination back in her eyes. Okay, but first I need to tell you what really happened in Paris. Because once Marcus releases that footage, everything we think we know about Father's death is going to change. She reached into her bag and pulled out one final notebook, its pages yellow with age. This isn't mine. It's Father's. I found it in Paris, and what it reveals about Marcus, about the company, about our whole family. She took a deep breath. Let's just say Father's murder was just the tip of the iceberg. As she opened the notebook, I realized we were about to learn the truth that had gotten our father killed. And somewhere out there, Marcus was watching, waiting, ready to destroy us all to keep his secrets safe. Father's notebook changed everything. As Victoria read from its pages in the safe house kitchen, the full horror of what Marcus and his associates had built became clear. It wasn't just money laundering, Victoria explained, her voice hollow. They were using the company to hide something much worse. Human trafficking, illegal organ trade, all masked behind legitimate business transactions. Martinez leaned forward. And Paris? I went there to meet Father's old partner, Jean-Pierre. He had proof, videos of Marcus with the trafficking victims. Victoria's hands trembled. But Marcus found out. When I got to Jean-Pierre's hotel room, she stopped, fighting tears. What happened? I asked gently. Marcus was already there. He made me watch as his men. Victoria couldn't continue. That's what's on the hotel security footage, Martinez realized. You witnessing a murder. Victoria nodded. Marcus said if I didn't help him with Father, the footage would accidentally leak to the police. I'd be implicated in Jean-Pierre's death. My phone buzzed. An urgent message from Davidson. Sec found the Paris connection. Arrests starting. Turn on the news now. I grabbed the remote. The breaking news banner hit us like a thunderbolt. Major financial firm implicated in international trafficking ring. CEO Marcus Wheeler arrested. Victoria gasped. How? Your father's notebook. Martinez smiled. Those weren't just account numbers. They were dates, locations, names of victims. Once we matched them with the SEC's findings. My phone buzzed again. Davidson, Wheeler talking. Full confession. Victoria will be cleared. Cooperation agreement already filed. Relief flooded through me, but Victoria wasn't celebrating. It's not over, she said quietly. Marcus has contingency plans. People who'll act if he's arrested. As if on cue, Martinez's phone rang. Her face turned grave as she listened. Security breach at the hospital. Nancy's gone. Gone? I felt cold. Dead. No, escaped. Left a note. Tell Victoria I kept my promise. The truth about Edward is in the garden. Victoria's eyes widened. The garden, Father's rose garden. Nancy told me when she helped him bury something there, right before he died. Within hours, forensic teams were digging up the rose garden. They found a waterproof tube containing a USB drive and a letter. Father's final message was clear. He had discovered Marcus's trafficking operation and gathered evidence. But instead of going to the authorities immediately, he hid copies of everything, including recordings of Marcus admitting to his crimes. Your father was building an airtight case, Martinez explained. He knew they'd kill him if he went public too soon. This way, even his death would serve as evidence. The news exploded over the next few days. Marcus and 20 others arrested. Victims rescued. Millions in hidden assets seized. Victoria's testimony, combined with Father's evidence, brought the entire network down. Mother's final diary entry made sense now. The truth finds its way to light, Catherine. Your father made sure of it. Watch the roses bloom. A month later, Victoria and I stood in that same garden. The roses were indeed blooming, their scent sweet in the summer air. The estate's been released from probate, I told her. No more legal holds. Victoria nodded. It's yours. All of it. I don't deserve. Stop, I interrupted. We're doing this together. Father's last letter asked us to. She smiled slightly. Partners? Sisters, I corrected. We turned as Martinez's car pulled up. She had news. Marcus had been found dead in his cell. Apparent suicide, though no one really believed it. His network, dying its final death, had tied up loose ends. It's really over, Victoria whispered. I thought of Mother's will reading just months ago. How different everything was now. The estate meant nothing compared to the truth we'd uncovered, the justice we'd found. Ready to start over? I asked Victoria. She looked at the roses, at the garden where Father had hidden his final gift of truth. Yes, she said firmly. Together. As we walked back to the house, I remembered Mother's words. The truth always finds its way to light. She'd known somehow, known that her will would spark the sequence of events that would expose everything. Her final act of justice wrapped in an apparent act of cruelty. The truth had indeed found its way to light, and in that light, something unexpected had bloomed, a real family born from the ashes of secrets and lies.